Continuing on with the TMCC Library Open Genealogy Lab Outstanding Guest Speaker Series, today we are pleased to present Sandy Vasco. Sandy grew up in Homer Township in Will County, Illinois, and attended Lockport schools. Her first employment of 25 years was the Argonne National Laboratory in the High Energy Physics Department, and later the Computer Center. He has been a member of the Will County Historical Society for over 40 years, served on the board for 20 years, and has been the director of the Will County Historical Museum and Research Center for the past 14. She also writes 3 weekly newspaper columns about the history of the region. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Sandy? The Braidwood?
Braidwood, yes.
Thank you. Braidwood Journal, the Wilmington Advocate, and the Farmers Weekly Review. Through her company, the Sands of Time, she gives programs concerning a variety of topics, all having to do with some part of Will County history. Today, Sandy will cover the archives and holdings of Will County Historical Museum and Research Center that are available for research. So I'd like to offer a warm virtual welcome to Sandy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to give you a little background about our museum. It's located in the headquarters building of the I&M Canal. Now, many know about the I&M Canal. It started in Chicago and extended to LaSalle, Peru, to the Illinois River. It is credited with the economic development of Chicago and indeed the whole northern Illinois region. The canal started to be built around 1836. And to that end, many, many workers were brought in between 1836 and 1847. Mainly Irish, but there were some Swedes, some Poles. Many of them, we assume about 60% of the men who were actual laborers perished digging the canal. Many of them were Irish, and this created an Irish linear community from the shores of Lake Michigan, Bridgeport in Chicago, down the Des Plaines River, Willow Springs, Lamont, Joliet, Illinois, famous for its prisons, and on out west to LaSalle, Peru, and the Illinois River. Consequently, because the Irish were there, the first churches in the area were Catholic churches, quickly followed by German Lutheran churches. The eastern part of our county was settled by German ancestors mainly, and that was around 1870s through maybe the 1920s and 30s were the German immigration time. Our organization started in 1972. In 1976, the state of Illinois offered us this building and all of its holdings to the Historical Society for $1. And that was a deal, as you can imagine. And we took advantage of it. So in our resources, we have many things. And the first thing that I'd like to talk about is our photo resources. We have approximately 10,000 images in our photo file. Many of them are working image. Some of them are, as you can see, military records. And a lot of them are simply family photos that we have taken in, such as the one on the right. Some of them, I would say about 70% of them, we know who they are. About 30% of them, they're just an unknown woman or an unknown person. However, we always hope that somebody will say, hey, that's my grandmother, and we'll know who they are. Also in this collection is a huge World War II collection that was printed in the Joliet Herald News during the war years in World War II. They printed the photograph of the person in the military, gave not only who their parents were, but where they were living, where they were stationed in some cases, when they were married, when they went on. The originals were cutouts from the newspaper. So the originals are now just turning into cornflakes. So we are in a project to scan them before they are lost forever, because it's a huge resource. And here you see a photograph on the left that we searched for the last name Jurisic and came up with this guy's picture. It tells you who his parents were and where they lived. We have a lot of the middle picture is the family named Fisk, just gave us everything they had. We really don't know who these people are, but if you're named Fisk, maybe you'll know. And of course, on the right, we have an even older photograph. And again, we searched for a word, a person's word. These photos, I think our earliest photos go back to the tintypes from 1840. And then we go on to our obituary files. You can see on the left that drawer. Those drawers are in our vault in this building. The vault was originally created by the I&M Canal to hold their records, usually leases and other kinds of sales records. It just turns out that the leases are the same size as a card file. So in 1976, our group started cutting out obituaries. As we get old newspapers, which are usually falling apart, we go through them, find the obituaries, scan them, and put them in our file. Until recently, we didn't have an electronic file that we could go in and type in a name. We would simply have to go back to the vault and look through the card file. We're in the process. How many obits do you have in now? Probably
26,000.
She has entered 26,000 names into our obituary file. The name, that file has the last name, first name, the date of death. You can see it in the middle there. And from there, we can go into our card file and find the rest of the obituary. And at this point, I should tell you that none of our files, our indexes are online. Not that we don't know how to do it, not that we can't afford, don't really want to do it, but this is the problem. We are a private 501c3, not funded by any taxpayer dollars. Even though we have county in our name, the county does not give us any money, nor does the state, nor does any of the cities or townships in Will County. And so we have to earn our own money. And if I give all my information out for free, I could request a donation, but we feel that we probably would get very few. People would use the indexes and then not send the money. And I bring up how many of you, have donated when you've gotten to Wikipedia, for instance. It always says donate. How many people donate? I don't know, but I don't think there's very many. However, we don't charge for research. So if you call us up and ask us what we have, we'll be glad to scan it, send it through your snail mail, make JPEGs, PDFs, whatever you like, and we don't charge. What we say is, please send a donation, and how much is up to you. We don't really tell people how much to donate. I usually just say, whatever it's worth to you. If I had a man donate $100 because I found his grandmother in the insane asylum in Peoria, Illinois. And we do have that information. Now we go on to documents. We have all the early documents of the I&M Canal. About 78,000 of the documents have been archived and indexed, which means we know whose name is on them. And a little bit about them, sometimes not too much. A few of them have been scanned. You'll see the document that's to the right there, and it has a person's name on it. If you think that your ancestor worked on the I&M Canal or was associated with the I&M Canal, or even lived in the area between 1830s and say 1850s, the canal era, more than likely we have a name on some document. Now it might only be a record of payment, or it might be an application for a job, but we do have all of those. And daily, we are putting more and more into this file. This file is in past perfect. You can see what it looks like there on the left, and it gives us a little bit of information. And we can put in both last names, first names, names of companies, locations of towns, and hopefully something will come up. We also have family files. As I said, we've existed since 1976, and people have come to do research here. And we always ask them, would they leave a copy? In the days before the computer, these copies were kept in a vertical file, and they may have anything in them. They may have photographs, they may have letters. As you can see, this is a document. We searched the name of Collins. We have all of the plat maps of Will County from 1862 through about, I think, 2010, something like that. So if your family lived anywhere in Will County, we could, and had that, the plat maps were done not every 5 years or even regularly. There's an 1862 and an 1873, 1893, 1993, so 1919. So we may have that plat map, and in this case we did. You can see we highlighted the Collins name in Homer Township. So that is usually very interesting for people who want to know exactly where their ancestor lived. Then we have indexes from other resources. Our Will County is not known for being genealogically friendly. They have very little in the way of archives that you can look at or find out about. However, they did at one time take a lot of their court record books and put them on microfilm, and then put the original in the dumpster. Well, we found out about it, and a group of us went dumpster diving. And in this case, it was good dumpster diving. So we pulled out these court record books, as many as we could, but there were other people in there, dumpster with us, also pulling out large court record books. The ones that we managed to get, one of them is the insanity court records. The judge's court, as it was called, in the old days, you had to go into court to prove insanity, to have them sent to a insane asylum. So here we see a picture of our index of an insanity court file. Then the first name is the person who was declared insane, what date they were declared insane, who testified or asked for them to be put into an insane asylum, which insane asylum they went to. You can see there was Elgin, Kankakee, there was one in Manteno. I see an epileptics colony in Dixon, unfortunately. And then on the right, some of the doctors or people who testified at the court hearing. I believe we have 6 of these books, and they go back as far as the 1880s. Now, this information, I don't think is on any other area because of HIPAA laws. Insanity, of course, just like anything else, is a disease, and the medical community goes by HIPAA laws. However, these are also court records, and court records are public records. There's no hidden court records here in Will County, at least. So in this context, we can give out this information. Now, sometimes it does have a diagnosis, sometimes it does not. It depends on the record book. But it is a very interesting source, and I don't think it's anywhere else in the Will County community. We have probate court books. I believe there's 7 or 8 of them now that we've indexed, and these contain the name of the person who died, the town that they were living in when they died, the date of their death, and what page their information is on. And of course, you as genealogists know that probate court record books also contain wills. And those have been very, very helpful to many of our genealogists, finding who was in good standing with grandpa and who only got $1 versus who got $100 or $1,000. I always find that interesting. Again, these are, if you call or write or email for this information, we will send you a scan of the page or pages that your person is on. Again, we don't charge for that at all. We have maps, the Sanborn maps, Sanborn Insurance Company, I think, and I'm pretty sure has their information online as well. But we also have several large Sanborn maps from, I believe, 1923. Both of them are from 1923. The right is a 1873 plat map. All of those are digitized, and this happens to be New Lenox Township. The 1873 map also shows where forests are. That's that sort of scrabbly stuff in the middle. And on the outside, you will see that there are no trees. That scrabbly stuff in the middle indicates forest, and the rest of it has no trees. We are on the tall grass prairie here in Will County, so the rest of that land can be assumed to be prairie land. And farmers who farm prairie land are quite different than farmers who farm land with wooded on it. Then we come to our vertical files. I don't have a handle as to how many we have, but I'm guessing it's close to 10,000. And these vertical files contain organizational histories, as you can see, Civic and Commerce Association, about the towns, the books or pamphlets that have been read or written throughout the history. And those are also done by, we have them indexed and we know where they are. Sometimes they're very interesting because the local associations have photographs of their members, and a lot of times those kind of photographs are not available anywhere else. And I know a lot of the church records that we have in this format also have photographs of pastors and people who are coming to the church, and also people who have donated to the church. I find that very, very useful. Here we have, you can see yearbooks, top left photograph. We don't have every year from every high school in Will County. We have a lot of Joliet yearbooks, a lot of Lockport yearbooks, Plainfield, some from Custer Park, which is in the southern part of our county, some from the eastern part of our county. The top right-hand book is books that have been written about every single township in Will County. These are the Rural Structure Survey. And all of the buildings that were not in a metropolitan area, in other words, in a rural or unincorporated area, were looked at. We found out how old they were, who built them, their history, whether they should be on the National Register or not. But even buildings that are not National Register eligible are listed in these books. They're by township, lots of photographs of family farms, not too many of people themselves, but again, for every single township. These are also available through the Will County Land Use Economic Development website. You get on their website, look for Rural Structures Survey, and all 24 townships of Will County are on there. The bottom shows microfilm, and we do have a microfilm machine. It no longer prints, but we can take photos from the screen. And the microfilms that we have are mainly newspapers. We have some censuses, and again, most of the newspapers that were in Will County were put on microfilm. Unfortunately, in Lockport itself, where we are located, the microfilm doesn't start till around 1896. There are obituaries, but there are a lot of information and regular news stories, especially if you have a murder or something like that in your family, it would show up in the newspapers. And I find that very, very interesting as well. Okay, I'm going to tell you how you can use our archives. First, if you're coming in, call ahead and make sure that there's going to be a knowledgeable person here. We are an all-volunteer organization, and there are some days that we just don't have a volunteer to come in. This happens a lot on weekends, especially. We are open from noon to 4, Tuesday through Saturday for using the archives. We are closed on Tuesdays to visitors, but our staff does work on Tuesday. If that is not convenient, call us up and we will come in at any single time. You can submit an email request through our website, www.willhistory.org, or send it directly to info@willhistory.org. And please tell us what you already know. We have, and I'm sure all of you know, people who already know information, but they want to see what we have. And we may, spend a half an hour or an hour getting this information, giving it to them, and then they say, oh, well, I already have that. What else do you have? Well, my person has just wasted an hour of their time, and we don't have that many hours to give away. So please let us know what you already know so that we don't reinvent the wheel for you. There are no fees associated with research, either by us or by yourself. Whatever you donate, the amount that seems reasonable to you to help pay our bills, we would appreciate the donation, but we don't necessarily always get a donation, and that's fine with us too. We really want you to have the information and we want to give it to you, but we want to be able to ask you for that donation. So I think that's about it. It's all over with now. So you can see that. Oh, and I see everybody on the screen now. So does anybody have any questions or anything about that? Oh, and I wanted to also tell you that in the southern part of our county, we're coal mines. Braidwood, Coal City, Diamond, Gardner, Braceville, all of those areas we have information on. And many of them, because mining gave out in the 1900s in those areas, many of those people moved west to become coal miners out west, and also to mine other things, silver, gold, all of that kinds of things. So if your family came from miners and they moved from Illinois to out west, we may have that information in our coal mining information. And I have to say that I myself am a historian, and I have some of my private research files on almost every town. And these research files have been taken from newspapers. So I probably have 350 transcribed pages in Word about Braidwood history, probably 100 pages on each of the towns in Will County. And I'd be glad to share that information with you as well. All right, any questions?
Go ahead, class. Just unmute your microphone. While I'm waiting for questions to come in, Sandy, do you purchase the collections that you have in there, or do you depend completely on donations?
Completely on donations. We have very little money to purchase anything, and I can't remember any time that we actually have. People are very generous with their information. And as I say, the I&M Canal information was given to us as well.
So who's your typical donor of collections?
I would say it is families whose eldest member has passed away, and they live maybe in another state, the descendants, and they come back to clean grandma's house out. And they have this huge amount of stuff, and they just give it to us because they can't handle it. And many, unfortunately, younger people don't get the genealogical bug until they get a little older. And so that's fine. They can give it to us and we will take it, and they could come back and do research here. But mainly it is families who no longer want all the stuff that their family has collected over the years.
Oh my goodness, rather
And
sad.
we started in 1962. So this will be our 60th year in business. So that's a lot of time for people to donate. One of the things that was donated, most amazingly, was a white rose that was on Abraham Lincoln's funeral bier at his funeral in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol, April 20th, 1865. It is the only surviving rose from his funeral. There is a red rose that was in a vase at the base of the coffin. There's one red rose in Library of Congress, and we have the only existing white rose. And I just found that in our collection 6 years ago while looking through boxes that hadn't been looked at in a long while.
Wow, that is amazing.
Well,
Absolutely
I
amazing.
kind of thought it was amazing too. When I found out about it, found out what it was, I was shocked. I would wake up in the middle of the night for months, just smiling away. Oh my gosh, I found the Lincoln Rose. And it is one of our prized possessions. We also have a calling card from Lincoln, carte de visite, they call them CDVs. Mary and Lincoln, it was their CDV. We have a couch that Lincoln sat on. Lots of really, really cool things. We have presidential signatures of Polk, Pierce, Tyler, Taylor, Fillmore, and Van Buren. And these were on land deeds given to men who survived the war of the Mexican War. As a bounty, they were given land in the West, and it was a federal program, so the president himself had to sign the land deed. So we have many of those as well.
That is amazing. I have a one quick story about my ancestor's connection to Abraham Lincoln. He was in a parade as Abraham Lincoln was going by, and my ancestor was I guess not a man of the world, so to speak. And he said to his fellow soldier who was standing there, he says, "Is that Uncle Sam?" And he said, "No, that's President Lincoln." And they actually wrote about it in the newspaper. So that's how I happen to know it happened.
Wow. Well, you know, I have to admit, I shouldn't do this in front of the whole world, but I was never a great fan of Lincoln's. I thought he was a nice guy, but I thought maybe the hype was a little too much. And I was writing for the Wilmington, Illinois newspaper. And at one time I wrote that he had never visited Wilmington except once when his funeral train went by, and then he never bothered to wave. So everybody hated that. And then when I found out that he did visit Wilmington, I found that he was standing next to the tracks waiting for a train to take him to Chicago in 1856. He was stumping for the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And he did a speech in Wilmington. The next morning, he's waiting for the train, and his landlady from the night before and her friend were going to Chicago as well. Introductions were made. Lincoln doffed his hat and took a step backwards, tripped over the rails, and fell into the spot where the locomotive dropped its cinders. And of course, got very dirty. And so then I wrote that Wilmington was the place where Lincoln made an ass of himself.
I can see how that might not go over well.
Yes, unfortunately, I have been punished. As soon as I became director, everything associated with Lincoln started coming in. I had one donation of 89 images of Lincoln. We already had some Lincoln. We had this Lincoln couch, the Lincoln rose. I get it now. I don't need any more Lincoln stuff. But I have to admit he's very popular and people do come in to see the Lincoln related stuff.
Do you ever run out of space? I mean, I've seen your picture on your website, and it doesn't look like you have that much space.
Well, yes, we do run out of space. The vault, we have been in a project the last few years. The society would keep photographs in frames. So all these frames are piled up. So we're removing the photos from the frames, scanning them, putting them into an acid-free environment, stuff like that. But yes, we are about out of space. We do have a second location called the Heritage Village, which is buildings that we have rescued from demolition. 1857 one-room schoolhouse, an 1865 farmhouse. We put them together to make a little village. And so we have more space to store stuff over there. And those buildings also are furnished to the period. So a lot of the furniture we had has been moved over there, leaving room for more paperwork, of course.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme between almost all my guest speakers, is not enough room.
Yeah, and you have to learn how to make room. And sometimes it's just, you know, remove everything that's in a frame that possibly can be removed. You know, get things organized, lay them flat, make sure that they're not, you know, we don't have a box with 2 things in it when that box might hold 20 things, you know. It's an ever going on just all the time. I'm always doing that. Yeah. And
regarding your yearbooks, I frequently donate yearbooks if I can, you know, if they're reasonably priced, if I find them on Amazon or eBay or other websites like, you know, Goodwill and that kind of thing. Do you have a listing of yearbooks that you actually have, so, you know, it wouldn't be duplicated by a donor?
I do, and I can send that from you to you. Yeah, I have one because I want to know what we have. It's in that. And so thank God for Excel. I'll tell you, I don't know what I would do without it, because all of these files are Excel files, and it's so easy. Everybody knows how to put stuff in, to do searches, and yeah, I have an Excel file on it. I have to say that my own yearbook is there, and my staff, well, let's put it this way, you can never get any more respect once your staff has seen your freshman high school yearbook picture. They all looked at and said, Laura, you look like a dork. You know, yeah, we all looked like a dork when we were freshmen.
Yeah, well, I think my worst picture was in 5th grade. That was the worst one. I was biting my lip.
Oh.
Okay, so can you tell us, like, I know you do tours. So when you do
Yep.
tours, can you kind of tell us a little bit about the tours?
Well, yeah, we do change out our exhibits, but at present we have a typewriter exhibit. All of the typewriters that we have on display were used here in this office, and they range from the 1870s through about 1930s, 1920s. We have a hat display in that same room. There's a beaver top hat and a silk top hat, some women's hats, ostrich plumes. We have prairie bonnets in there, things like that. We have in the next room, past our research room, we have a wedding dress exhibit from one family, 1930s, 1950s, and 1970s wedding dress. The next room has a doctor's office in it. This doctor was a very interesting man. He was originally from Indiana. He was an officer in an all-black regiment, the 113th United States Colored Infantry. And he was a great record keeper, and he has all of his documents are in our vault. And we have letters from people who said to him, do you remember me? I was a soldier, black soldier in the regiment. I broke my arm, you helped me. I can't get a soldier's pension. Could you help me? And of course he did. And he kept a copy of the letter he sent. So we can follow this black person who we know was in the Civil War, got their pension through him. We kind of have a little bit of a more insight into Black Civil War history. The next room contains a pre-1850 exhibit, which includes the gold rush of 1849. We know that at least 600 people from Will County went to California in 1849 and 50. Some died, 60 of them died, but many of them became rich, brought the money back here to Will County, and usually bought land with it. But some of them, like the Zumwalts, stayed in California and are in the Sacramento area to this day. So we have some California people who had their start here in Will County in 1849.
Well, that kind of brings it right up to California on the West Coast.
Yeah. The Zumwalts were very interesting. He didn't go by himself. He took his whole family, wife and children with him. And when he got there, the first thing they did was build a hotel, and the wife handled the hotel. It was especially known for having people from Will County staying there. And the boys and the father went out to the gold fields to get gold. But it turns out that she made more money at the hotel than he made looking for gold. So we always know that the woman has the better idea about these things.
Well, I've heard many stories of people who came out to get rich and went home not very rich at all.
Not very rich. There were a few here. There was one family called the Goodwins, and at one time, we are a fairly large county. It was said that with his gold rush money, he bought enough land that you could go from north to south without ever stepping off Goodwin land.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was pretty rich. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, and the last exhibit we have is a in our kitchen, which was a home at one time. We talk about making clothing. So we have spinning wheels in there. We show raw wool, raw linen, flax. We have a loom in there. We make our own rag rugs, show people how a loom works, etc. And then we take those rag rugs and sell them in our gift shop.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, can you kind of share with the class, what are the typical genealogy type questions you get in an average week?
Typically is, my ancestor worked on the I&M Canal. We know that he did. Can you tell us anything about him? Maybe we can, but this working on the I&M Canal business seems to be a story that's handed down from generation to generation. People are very proud that they worked on the I&M Canal. So a lot of that, a lot of it is DAR research, looking for information that way. I'm sorry to say we don't have birth certificates here. We don't have marriage licenses here. One of the things we do have is, I have a dear friend who is an African-American genealogist, and she has put together every death certificate of every Black person she could find who died in Will County prior to 1900. Many of them were children, of course, that's normal. Many of them were men who were in the Joliet Penitentiary. And a lot of them were, and those men died mainly cholera, typhoid, things like that. But there were also homesteaders. So we have a wonderful Black death certificate file. And I think that will be very useful, because Black genealogy is just now, I think, coming to the front. And we're hoping that she's going to be visiting this spring, and she's going to bring more information with her. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for letting us know about that. Okay, well, class, do you have any other questions? Go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi, it's Wendy Gregory. I'm from Reno, Nevada, and we in our class we talk about the damn Murphys, but I have a great grandfather that enlisted in the Civil War for the Union, and he enlisted in Illinois, and so you know, we all kind of know about Uncle or Grandpa Jim, and I just thought, is there any way I can find out a little bit more of why he was there? Because they were moving from Virginia, why they did it in Illinois instead of maybe Iowa, or
Well, what we have found in the enlistments is that people usually enlist where their friends or relatives were. You enlisted together because you wanted somebody to watch your back, and they enlisted in the same regiment. The Will County regiments are the 20th, the 39th, the 100th, the 64th, Kankakee Regiment of 113. Yes, there is a way. One of our historians, George Woodruff, who wrote the history of our county, also wrote a book about all of the men who were in the Civil War. So if you email us the information, we'll try to look it up. I'm pretty sure I have a better listing than what's on the state of Illinois website, at least for Will County. And why he was here, who knows? I guess I neglected to mention this, but just recently we found a previously thought lost 1845 Illinois state census. It was handwritten, rolled up, and found in the walls of an 1880s courthouse. It was given to a local historian. She put it in a wholesome bread wrapper and hid it in her underwear drawer. And when we found it, went ahead and gave it to the state archives, and they sent me a JPEG of each page. So if your relative was here in 1845, he might be on that census. But certainly a Civil War is something we do cover.
yeah, because I just pulled it up. He was part of the 102nd Regiment, Company F.
Company F. Well, I can certainly pull out that book. Send me an email giving me that information, and we'll put up the book and see what we can find, for sure.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and I'll share it with the class. Ha ha.
We like people who share. That gives me only one time to find it, and everybody else finds it after that. Yeah.
You know, Sandy, that kind of reminds me of something we're doing here locally. Our local state genealogical society is working on the replacing the lost 1890 census. By any chance, do you know anybody there locally who's done the same thing for your area?
Not really. Censuses for this area were mainly all the federal censuses. The state did a census in 35, 45, 55, and 65. Then they gave it up. The 35 one lists more people who were passing through the state than actually were living in the state, I found. But the 45 census through the entire state, until I found ours, had only 6 pages covering all the counties. One county had 1 page, another county had another page. So when I contacted the state archives, they were awed. They thought almost all the 1845 censuses were gone. They were so awed that they wouldn't let me send it to them. They came up and got it, and then they took us all out to lunch. They were so happy. So, you know, what can I say? I think the earliest, there were some early private censuses done in Illinois by the ag departments and people who are interested in agriculture. There was a lot of early on agricultural societies, and they did, in fact, we have a book of all of the farmers that were in Will County in 1920. So you never know where you're going to find that information.
And do all those ag censuses still exist?
I believe they do. I find them, I haven't done much research in ag stuff, like how many 100 acres this ancestor had and what he grew and things like that. But they do exist on the state of Illinois website, State Archives website.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, class, any other questions for our guest speaker? We'll give it a few seconds. Okay, Sandy, before I have you sign off, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for doing our doing a speech for our class today. We really appreciate it. And thank you also for letting us record. That's also very appreciated. We'll be putting that on our school YouTube channel. And then also before you go, I just want to let everyone know if you're going to leave us at this point in time, and we hope you don't, we hope you all stay for the second half of class where we work together on our family trees. But if you do decide to leave at this point in time, I just want to remind you, if there's anything in the chat box, please download it before you leave, because even if you log back in, the chat box will not be there when you log back in. So please, once again, download that chat box, very important. And then at this point in time, I'm going to once again invite everyone to stay for the second half of class. And Sandy, at this point in time, if you'd like to log out, all you got to do is click on that red exit button.
Okay, and that's what I'll do. I got to go back to indexing those records,
You stay safe, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.